very popular in Edmonton earlier this month when we had unseasonably warm weather. And then in terms of baked goods, we're serving a wide variety of baked goods, but amongst the players themselves, it's great to be able to use the NHL in our partnership to bring together Canada's favorites.
The smell of freshly brewed coffee, the sight of steaming bagels, golden Timbits, and warm breakfast sandwiches lined up behind the counter. For decades, Tim Hortons sold itself on an image of freshness: hot coffee poured by the pot, baked goods coming out of ovens in-store, everything prepared just for you. To Canadians, it wasn't just a coffee shop, it was a cultural institution, a daily ritual. But peel back that image today, and you'll find a very different story. The truth is that much of the food at Tim Hortons isn't as fresh as you think. For years, the chain built its reputation around the idea of homemade-style quality. In its early days, Tim Hortons shops were local, small, and proudly Canadian. Donuts were baked on site. Coffee was brewed in small batches and constantly refreshed. Even sandwiches and soups carried the feel of something made in store. Customers trusted the brand because it felt authentic. Simple food, prepared right where you ordered it, with a sense of care. The local shop was a gathering place where people believed they were getting real, fresh food. But the story began to shift in the 1990s and early 2000s as the company expanded aggressively. Growth brought efficiency, and efficiency meant centralizing production. Instead of each store baking donuts daily, Tim Hortons began using par-baked and frozen products, prepared in large facilities and shipped to locations. Donuts that were once made fresh every morning were now frozen and reheated. Bagels followed the same path, partially baked, frozen, and then finished in store, giving the illusion of fresh baking without the same quality. To the customer, the bagels still came out warm, but the truth was they hadn't been made from scratch in that store in years. The change was most noticeable with baked goods, but it spread across the menu. Muffins, croissants, and pastries became standardized frozen items. Breakfast sandwiches, once made with freshly cracked eggs, shifted to pre-cooked frozen egg patties. Even soups and chili, staples of the Tim Hortons lunch menu, were prepared off-site and shipped in bags, reheated in store rather than simmered in the kitchen. The convenience made operations smoother, but it also stripped away the freshness that once defined the brand. Customers noticed. The taste and texture of donuts changed. The bagels became chewier, with less of that homemade bite. The sandwiches felt more like assembly line products than something carefully made. For some, it was subtle. After all, a warmed-up bagel can still smell and taste good. But for longtime customers who remembered when Tim Hortons truly baked in-house, the difference was undeniable. Why did Tim Hortons take this path? The answer, as with most fast food chains, comes down to consistency, cost, and speed. By centralizing production, the company ensured that a chocolate-dipped donut in Toronto would look and taste the same as one in Calgary. Frozen products reduced waste, cut labor costs, and allowed stores to operate with fewer skilled bakers. The system made scaling the brand possible. Tim Hortons could open thousands of locations while promising the same menu everywhere. To investors, it made sense. But to customers, it eroded the trust built on the image of freshness. The decline in perceived freshness also reflects a cultural shift in how Tim Hortons positions itself. Once proudly marketed as a home away from home, it now operates more like a global fast food chain. Since being acquired by Restaurant Brands International in 2014, the same parent company that owns Burger King, Tim Hortons has focused heavily on expansion and profits. New menu items are often flashy promotions rather than improvements to core offerings. Quality has been sacrificed in the pursuit of efficiency, and yet the marketing still leans on nostalgia. Ads show smiling families, steaming coffee, and the idea of warmth and comfort. The reality, though, is that much of the food has traveled hundreds of miles before reaching your tray. It may look fresh when it comes out of the oven, but it's not the kind of freshness that comes from dough mixed in the back and donuts fried in-house. It's the freshness of a frozen product reheated until it passes as acceptable. For many Canadians, that truth stings. Tim Hortons isn't just a coffee shop, it's a cultural symbol tied to hockey games, long commutes, and daily routines. Generations grew up believing it was different from American fast food chains, that it was more local, more authentic. Learning that your bagel or donut was frozen in a factory rather than baked in the store down the street feels like a betrayal. It's not just about taste, it's about trust. Of course, some customers don't mind. Convenience is convenience, and if the coffee is hot and the prices are reasonable, they're satisfied. But the decline in food quality has become a running joke among critics and customers alike. Online forums and news outlets often highlight complaints: soggy sandwiches, dry donuts, rubbery eggs, that reinforce the perception that Tim Hortons food just isn't what it used to be. Even loyal fans admit that they go to Tim Hortons more for the ritual than the food. The coffee remains the backbone of the brand, though even that has faced criticism for inconsistency. The baked goods and sandwiches, once points of pride, are now more like filler, something to grab when you're already there for coffee, not something worth the trip on their own. In a crowded food landscape where artisanal bakeries, local coffee shops, and fast casual restaurants offer genuinely fresh food, Tim Hortons' reliance on frozen products feels dated. There's also an emotional layer to the decline. Many people remember their first Tim Hortons experience, walking in after a hockey game, warming up with hot chocolate, or grabbing a box of Timbits for the office. Those moments are tied to feelings of comfort, family, and Canadian identity. To realize that much of the food is mass-produced undercuts that sense of authenticity. It feels like something special has been traded away for efficiency. The question now is whether Tim Hortons can ever reclaim that freshness. Some argue it's too late, that the brand has firmly positioned itself as just another fast food giant. Others believe a return to quality could revitalize its reputation. If the company invested in real baking and better ingredients, it might once again stand apart. But as long as cost-cutting and consistency drive decisions, it's unlikely that freshness will return in the way customers remember. In the end, Tim Hortons still serves millions of people daily, and the food still looks the part. The bagels are warm, the donuts are sweet, the sandwiches are filling enough, but the story behind them tells a different truth. They're not fresh in the way people imagine. They're products of an industrial system designed for profit, not for authenticity. And that's why so many longtime customers feel let down. Because Tim Hortons wasn't just about coffee and donuts. It was about trust, about the idea that you were getting something made with care. Today, that trust has been replaced by packaging, frozen supply chains, and a promise of freshness that doesn't mean what it used to. So the next time you bite into a Tim Hortons donut or unwrap a breakfast sandwich, remember, it might taste warm, it might smell good, but it isn't the fresh, handmade food the brand built its legacy on. It's fast food in disguise, and that's the real reason Tim Hortons food isn't as fresh as you think.